and it's going to be fascinating when we get to the grid to see what people are electing to do in terms of tyres, because of course we have the build up to the race. We're a good 10 minutes or so yet away from the pit lane closing and the grid being 4 people needing to worry what tyres to go for, but we have a report already that 17 Stuart Leonard has had a spin on his way round to the grid, illustrating just how treacherous it is.
Depends on which set of tyres Stuart had been on, and looking out of the window from the commentary booth, the track is wet, so it would be the natural assumption to assume that everybody would have gone out on a set of wet weather tyres. As you watch the car, the 1790 coming back into the pit lane, that might have been, that's 55, but that may have been the cause of the spin. If you've got a group of cars as WRT have, you might want to put one of those cars out on a set of slick tyres, reconnoitre, I love that word, to reconnoitre what might have happened. So watch what's going on. Well, that's a formation. Stuart Leonard, oh, left rear, that ain't going any further.
That's a big hit.
That's a big hit in the left corner, so Stuart Leonard got caught out principally because he let his car, I don't know what set of tyres he was on, but he let the car run wide over the painted curbs, which are a lot less grip in wet conditions than they would have dry conditions. He was just simply caught out, but the outcome of it is he's backed the car into the barrier, and that corner, I suspect, is beyond repair in the very short time that is now available. First of all, he's got to get the car back if it's drivable, and if he gets it back, depending on the extent of the damage, there ain't time in my book, because the pit lane will probably be closing very shortly anyway. Gets worse, as I said.
Absolutely. So
I'm a very little person.
It's your positive, that's not repairable. It's a great shame, but it illustrates how treacherous it is out there, and Stuart will be absolutely mortified about that for himself, for the team, for his friends, because it could well be that that couple, of course, now you suggest is a non-starter.
The dilemma that teams are going to have is, first of all, predicting what's going to happen. Will it rain or not? The second dilemma is, if we do the safe thing and start on a set of wets, is the racetrack going to be sufficiently dry that it will tear the wets apart before the pit lane window opens 25 minutes into the 1 hour race? So that's the juggling teams are going to have to do. They don't want to make 2 stops, and they don't want to get caught short by maybe somebody taking a massive risk, starting on a set of slicks, and then if the track does go maybe 5 or 8 minutes before the benefit of pit lane window opening, you know, it's all ifs, ands, or buts, and that's why the people on the pit wall actually do something pretty constructive. While it's all in the hands of the driver on the racetrack, it's what happens on the pit lane that can determine the outcome of what happens behind the wheel on the racetrack.
Certainly, it is getting brighter, and that gives optimism, but the forecast is for more of this rain to come in. Now, the Emil Frey Racing Lexuses are a story in themselves. You're looking at number 14 heading up towards the grid, and that is going to be started by Christian Kleen. The sister car for this race was qualified but briefly by Norbert Siller.
Yes, and where do you want to start with the story? Let's go back to Spa 4, when that car was run by Stefano Telli, and in the twilight hour, Stefan had a massive accident going through Eau Rouge up towards Radion. He hit the barrier, or the tower wall on the outside, so severely that the left front wheel was driven back to the point where it was parallel with the steering wheel. And Stefan suffered significant rapid deacceleration injuries. In other words, everything internal was forced forward. I don't know what the G-forces were very, very high. And I just want to say to you, get well soon. Bruised beyond belief. Part of his recovery, actually, apparently, is swimming. Now, apparently swimming is meant to be one of the forms of getting everything working and getting it healed. But swimming in salt water, not necessarily in fresh water. Right. So there's a saltwater pool somewhere there where he lives, and he is doing that regularly, and I've no doubt he'll be watching this back home and wishing that he would be behind the wheel of a 114 Lexus.
And the car then had an accident with Norbert Siller at the wheel this morning, so more damage. We'll come back to Lexus in a moment. Let's just hear from the pole position driver, because Nico Bastien has never raced here before, but he did a mighty job in qualifying this morning. He's on pole position. He's with the porter, Dakota Jane.
Nico, now from never racing before to being on pole, what a spectacular qualifying you have.
Yeah, it was a really good qualifying, to be honest. We did a really good work. Obviously, the first row is completely full with ACA cars, and Aka generally and also the Mercedes seems to be very, very good here in Hungary, and also the track fits me very well. So it was a good qualifying for all of us, and but now it's a different story, as you can see down there.
Now let's talk a little bit about tyres. I've seen your mechanics attach the slicks to the car. Is that a good strategy move? It's still wet, the track?
I tell you in 1 hour. I have no idea, but in the moment we have to try something, sure. If you start with rain tires, maybe really good in the first 2 laps, but then after you will struggle. It's hot already again. I feel a little bit in Malaysia, and I think that the first 2 will be very spectacular for the commentators and for the spectators, because we like the first row will be on slicks, and then you just need to survive, and then maybe after 5-6 minutes gonna be an easier race for all of us.
Let's see if you survive. Good luck.
Nico Bastian knows about Malaysia because he's been a competitor in the Blancpain GT Series Asia, raced at Sepang and won there at the start of the year. And interesting what he says about going on slicks, because the temperature is going up and up and up, and it's drying the so quickly.
Well, that's what one believes. I mean, it's 27.5 Celsius, so that's a high temperature, but the track is saturated. Now, when all, was it 22 cars? It'd be 22 and 21. I'm not sure the 1-4 is going to make it into the grid. Anyway, it will be a problem going into turn 1, and you can set off a chain effect. One car gets it wrong and hits another car, hits another. That's the concern. So the safe thing to do is clearly start on a set of wets and just suck it up and realize you're going to have to make a pit stop before the pit stop window opens. That's the safe thing to do. The downside of it is if the track dries as quickly as Nico Bastian feels it will do, and I'm not persuaded that he is right that it might after 2 laps or be dry enough after 2 laps to allow a slick tire to continue its own. I think there was sufficient rain fell, in spite of what the ambient is. The wind has dropped. The wind was much stronger earlier in the morning. It's now dropped. You need a combination of wind and ambient temperature, and of course all the
but I think Nico is a smart driver, and I'm a smart driver too, so we'll try to take it easy and get out of the first lap in first and second position. I don't know which order yet. I'll try my best, but for sure try to keep it clean.
Now, you just said to me that it's going to be a funny race. Why do you think it's going to be a funny race?
Well, look at the tarmac. You know, the tarmac is all wet. We just had a big storm before, and now the sun is really shining, and this track dries up pretty quickly. So I think we're going to start on slicks, even though the track is still completely wet and there's not a single patch of dry. But we're expecting the track to dry up in 4 to 5 laps. So for the whole stint, it's actually better to start on slicks. But the few first laps will be tricky.
Now, we just saw the mechanics looking under the hood of your car. Do you know anything about that?
I have no idea. I'm wondering just like you.
Oh no, good luck.
Now we're hearing that it will be a normal start, not a safety car start, but they've had no running in the wet, have they? Yesterday was a dry day, qualifying this morning was in the dry, so going onto a wet road, even if it dries quite quickly, it's still an unknown.
It is an unknown. They've had an outlap, and they could have maybe done a second outlap if they were able to come through the pit lane. The concern, obviously, is as everybody takes the light out, the run down into turn 1, if you're on a set of slick tires, you've got to think, where am I going to brake? Because I've got probably less than 50% of my normal dry weather slick tire braking. So I'm going to have to brake early, but the people that are behind you are going to concertina because they're going to be still hard on it, not realizing that the people at the very front are having to brake that much earlier. And that's my concern, as you get a sort of domino effect of one minor error creating then something which is even more of a problem. I mean, it's not going to be a particular danger, but it could affect the number of cars that would be able to complete the first lap and therefore go on and finish in the race. I know the drivers are all being slightly light-hearted and saying this is what we're going to do and it's going to dry after 2 laps in the case of Nico Bastian or 4 or 5 laps in the case of Nico Jamin. That would be at best, and that's only on a racing line.
Yeah. Michael Meadows will start on the second row. He'll have a bit of spray to contend with, and tiptoeing around the first couple of laps for self-preservation will be key. After that, he can start to push as the road dries and gets quicker. Michael Meadows, third in the championship with Raffaele Marciello. They very definitely want some good points out of this weekend. And, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare as we get set for this first 1 hour race. The grid complete. It looks as though the Stuart Lender car is on the grid, so despite that spin into the barrier, I think he's there.
Well, I mean, the team have done a great job. I mean, whether there was damage or not to that corner, it certainly looked to me, because the bodywork detached pretty rapidly, and if you hit something, and the rear corner of an Audi is very pronounced, it's each corner is at each corner of the car. Some cars got a little bit more bodywork behind the rear wheel, but in the Audi there's not an awful lot. But fortunately for them, they've decided that the back of the car, the suspension particularly, is not a problem, and they've been able to get the car lined up, which is a great job by the WRT team to turn it around in the limited amount of time available.
Absolutely right, and to do it all on the grid, because I don't think the car came back through the pit lane. It went straight to the grid. Now, going a bit further back down the grid is the GRT Lamborghini. Andrea Caldarelli, one of the drivers of car number 19. What are his chances going into this first race?
Andrea, now you're starting P6 on the grid. What's your tyre of choice today?
We put slicks on, but we're still deciding actually. We still have a couple of minutes to go, so I think Ezekiel wanted to go on wets, but too much sunshine, I think. So we choose for slicks.
You think it's going to rain?
Good call, but no, I don't think so. I think it's a good choice to go on slicks.
Do you think there's going to be any danger of standing water on the track?
Yeah, Ezekiel told me that in Sector 2 there is a lot of standing water, so he wanted to go on wets, but we believe that in the next 10-15 minutes it's going to be almost full dry, so we take this gamble, let's see.
Do you think Ezzy's going to be able to adapt his driving technique?
Looking at his face, I think he's on it, so I think he's going to do a good job.
And sister car right beside you, is that going to be a problem?
I hope no. I hope no. No, he knows what to do, so I think they will be fine.
Good luck for your race.
Thanks.
So Andrea Caldarelli gets ready. The team start to leave the grid. We have had the 10-minute board shown, and they're pit straight with the Audi course cars positioned at the front, the safety car, the leading car, and they will make their way from their positions shortly. The drivers, in the meantime, get suited and booted. Crash helmets back on. They'll get into the car. The grid is being cleared, and we'll get ready for the rolling start to race 1 of the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup here at the Hungaroring. David Addison and John Watson with you. It's an all Mercedes front row. It's Audi, Mercedes on the second row of the grid, and ACA ASP has just locked out the weekend thus far. Free practice, qualifying. There's nothing seemingly that's going to stop the Mercedes, but now these track conditions may well throw a curveball, certainly into the start of the race. Interesting, Andrea Caldarelli saying, I don't think there's going to be any more rain. The forecast is it's set in for the afternoon. Well, right now it's a lovely sunny afternoon again.
Yes, indeed, but the weather did change quite rapidly. The rain came in, the thunder, then lightning as well. So we're in a valley. This circuit is built in sort of the middle of a valley just outside Budapest. Looking that way, that's down the straight. You can see at the far end there is a little bit of cloud. There's a bit to the right. Nothing that would indicate the kind of biblical rain that we had, what 40 minutes ago. So the track, in theory, is only going to get better, but going back to my initial observations, it's on that initial opening lap into turn 1 that the front row drivers have got to be, let's call it prudent, to make sure that they don't set off something that will end up with maybe more than 2 or 3 cars getting involved.
Well, we're almost ready to go racing, and Christopher Mies is keeping an eye to these conditions because he will do the second stint in the number 1 Audi. Alex Riberas will start championship leaders.
Christopher, now 2017 looked a very good year for WRT. Is 2018 their year as well?
Well, we hope so. Obviously, we are lucky enough to lead the championship right now, sprint and overall. It's looking quite good today. It's going to be exciting because we obviously had rain before. Now we're starting on slicks like the championship contenders as well. It's going to be a good one. Lucky I'm not in the car first, so I can see what my teammate Alex is doing, but I'm really looking forward to jump in for the second half.
Let's see how it goes. Good luck.
Christopher Mies makes a very good point that because the others in the championship, their challengers, are starting on slicks, you're kind of pushed in that direction. So if you want to be the one that's out of step with the rest of the field, you might turn out a winner or you might turn out a loser. So if the majority are going on slicks, you're kind of dragged into that majority vote to go the same direction.
It's true, isn't it? You get forced down that channel. So there is the grid. Let's just have a quick look to make sure that Stuart Leonard's car is there. Yes, it is. And do we have an all complete back row, or is it just a solitary car? Because the 11th row is complete, which means that Norbert Siedler is there on the grid. So the 114 Emil Frey Racing Lexus has been repaired. Michael Meadows there for ACA ASP, ready to go. Double Carrera Cup GB champion, former Ferrari racer within the British GT Championship. Came from single-seaters, Formula BMW in the UK and British Formula 3 Class B many years ago. But Michael Meadows is a very, very rapid peddler, but Raffaele Marciello has kind of taken all the limelight this year, but they've not yet had a win. They keep racking up the points, but they need a win, and so does this car that lines up 5th on the grid. Christian Engelhardt will start, Mirko Bortolotti will take over.
Yeah, good job in qualifying by the 63 Lamborghini. They got up to 3rd place at one point, but in the closing moments they dropped back down to the 3rd row of the grid at 5th. And as everybody is sitting there waiting and watching and just praying that nature will take its course and get this racetrack to a dry enough condition. You can see around the car there are patches now of dry racetrack beginning to appear, and that's good news. There's the problem. That is one of the problems, just coming out of turn 7 and into 8, where there is a little bit of water that has yet not cleared sufficiently, and if you hit that with just one of your 4 wheels or 2 of your 4 wheels, you'll end up not dissimilar to what we saw a few minutes ago with Stuart Leonard. At this point in the racetrack, he ran that curve on the exit on the curve coming through turn 11, and that rotated him. Track clearly around the back is looking better than it is on the grid, but that is still fundamentally only one car wide coming into turn 12.
Number 35, Mercedes, getting ready for the start of the formation lap. It's another of the ACA ASP fleet, and this is Vladimir Avtoev, who is behind the wheel. So the teams now make their way into the pit lane. The grid is cleared, but for the last of the engineers. And it's time that we had a last walk up the grid and identified who starts where and a look at the liveries, because for pole position it is Nico Bastien in the grey Mercedes, 87 is Nico Jamin alongside, both from the ACA ASP stable. The second row, look left, you'll see the Audi number 1 started by Alex Riberas. Michael Meadows, yellow and black Mercedes, is alongside. On the third row of the grid there is the Lamborghini in the hands of Christian Engelhardt, and the sister car number 19 of Ezequiel Perez Compact is alongside. Go back a row, row 4, there's yet another of the Mercedes. This is the SMP Racing by ACA ASP car 35, Vladimir Avtoev. And number 2, Dries Van Thor will start the car he shares with Will Stevens. Behind them comes the ever-improving Simon Gachet, who's been impressive this year. He shares with Christopher Hasser in the 25 Renault Trucks-backed Audi. And then you've got Christian Kleen, ex-Grand Prix racer, in the number 14 Emil Frey Lexus. On row 6, there's Andrew Watson in the 3Y Technology BMW M6, and alongside him is Zolder winner Stein Schotthorst in the Audi, the Attempto racing car, ahead of the sister car of his brother, Peter Schotthorst, and alongside is the blue Black Falcon Mercedes of the vastly experienced Hubert Haupt to go first, Lukas Stolz to take over. 82 Lamborghini is Loris Hezemans to start, and alongside is the Pro-Am Championship leading car of Piti Bhirombhakdi and Carlo Van Dam, the Ferrari. Behind them, Adrian Delina starts the black and green Audi. 17 is Stuart Leonard a long way back. Then the American-based Australian Kenny Harville, and it is Jirko Malczarek alongside him in the back row, Neil Stevenart's Audi and Norbert Siedler's repaired Lexus, as we get set for this 7th race in the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. The grid is formed, the track is wet, the temperature is going up. It's going to be fascinating to see who pushes and how hard they can push over the first couple of laps. So the last minute ticks down. The officials looking at the watches. We'll get ready to wave the green flag in a moment. Eric Ellery, who drives the leading car, will accelerate away and get everybody into formation behind for this rolling start. Slippy circuit, greasy circuit now. The green flag is waved and the parade lap is underway.
What the drivers need to try and do is get as much temperature in these still wet conditions as is possible, and it's not going to be really much more than they can do running behind the safety car. Their speed's going to be governed by that of the safety car. The other thing, of course, is to try and get as much temperature into your brakes so that when you put your foot in the brakes, you've got some degree of retardation. But as you see, anything that is offline is still thoroughly wet. And I can't imagine everybody's going to line up in line coming into turn 1. It would be against the instinct and nature of a racing driver, than anyone that I've ever known anyway.
It's going to be interesting to see how treacherous the first couple of laps are. That's the danger for everybody, because as the road starts to dry, then they can push on. Nico Bastien wants to be in the lead, he wants track position, but he's going to be the pioneer on every corner of the first few laps, isn't he? He's the first one to discover where the grip is and how much of that grip there is.
The big advantage he will have, though, is he'll have perfect vision, because he'll not be getting any of the spray coming from those cars that he would otherwise be following. So while he is the pathfinder in one respect, and he can control to a degree as well the pace of the field in the opening lap, but he will have clear vision, and that is worth an awful lot, particularly when you've got a field of cars all bunched together to make their way around the opening laps.
So the grid scrolls through, the formation lap is underway. The sun is back out, the road is getting dry, the temperature is going up. Nico Bastien half in jest saying it feels like Malaysia, but I know what he means, because it is getting ever more humid. The temperature yesterday was stiflingly hot, and it's heading that way despite the fact the road is wet. And the fans, and there are quite a few of them for a Saturday, are in the grandstands looking forward to a great spectacle from these GT cars as they thread their way now through the chicane, coming out of turns 6 and 7, short straights, then the left-hander of 8, go right at 9. You're constantly changing direction here, aren't you? It's corner after corner after corner.
It is a very busy racetrack. It's 4.3 kilometers. It's not a short circuit, but because of the way that, particularly from the end of sector 1 all the way through to end of sector 2, you're turning left, you're turning right, you're gradually picking up speed through, well, from the exit of turn 7 through 8, 9, 10 and 11. Gradually they're getting quicker. Then you come down into the stop into turn 12, a 90-degree right-hander. So that then is the end of sector 2, and there we see coming in to turn 12, bits of racetrack looking the light grey is the drying part of the racetrack.
So, is Nico Bastien going to be able to fend them off on the run to the first corner? We're about to find out who the really brave drivers are in the wet. Can Alex Riveras gain ground on the run into that first corner from the second row?
I'm going to look for the racing driver who's the sensible one, not necessarily the quickest one.
Watch this space. This weekend is round 4 in the Sprint Cup. This is our 7th race then. Of course, we've had 2 at Zolder, we've had 2 at Brands Hatch, 2 at Massano, and so now the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup reconvenes. Look at the way the road is drying. The Mercedes, which have been the fastest cars across free practice and qualifying, are at the front of the grid. 1 hour of racing at the Hungaroring is go, and a really good start there by Engelhardt, who dives out from the third row. He's got the lead on the way down towards the first corner. That was either an exemplary start or an anticipatory one, but either way, the Lamborghini has the advantage. Nico Jamin is on the outside line, and he goes deep into the corner. Michael Meadows tries to gain ground on the inside. So far, so good. They've all made it through, but Engelhardt away like a robber's dog. That was a great start.
A very good start by everybody. They controlled themselves, but certainly Christian Engelhardt got a real flyer as he went down the outside against the pit wall. But look, there's the problem into turn 2. You have no grip, and there's a falling. This corner folds away from you all the way around it, and then you've got to try and get out of the throttle to make sure. Over the curb and looking just ahead, was that Nicolas Jamin and the Mercedes. 4 wheels well and truly off the racetrack.
And there, Nico Bastien tries to go around the outside of it. They both go off the road, so does Meadows. They're all off, they can't have the grip. There's also the inviting extra runoff there as Jamin goes deep into turn 5. Nico Bastien will go second. Andrew Watson's got wide of the BMW in the background. Jamin on the outside is still braving it out with Bastien, who goes through on the inside. They touch. Michael Meadows tries to get in on the act as well. Look, there are Mercedes everywhere, and Jamin goes ahead again of Nico Bastien.
You wouldn't imagine these are all drivers on slick tires on a damp racetrack fighting like mad on the opening lap of race, but Andrew Watson pushing the back of the 88 Mercedes.
Is he on wets? Because those tyres, look, are giving him far better traction on this opening lap. He started 11th on the grid and he's up into the top 4. I reckon he's on wets.
I think you're absolutely spot on. The reason why that car is going so quickly right now is because he's got shed loads more grip from the tyre than those that are around him. Up now, squeezing past Nico Bastien in the 90 Mercedes currently. Well, that was on pole position. Now it's in second place and may well be down into third place. But how much longer will Andrew Watson be able to maintain this pace? Because as the track dries, then he will have those wet weather tyres beginning to deteriorate. We still assume, but the performance and the pace that he's had, you've got to think he's on a set of wet weathers.
What about Engelhardt? Because it was such a good getaway, and look at the first lap that he's done. He is 4.4 seconds clear. He's not tiptoeing around, and there's an Audi getting it way, way wrong coming out of the last corner. That was one of the Attempto cars. There's Andrew Watson going for third. Look on the inside line, he goes through. But Engelhardt, if he is on slicks, has done an outstanding first lap, hasn't he? There, deep into the first corner goes Simon Gachet. He survives it, but I'd query Engelhardt's tyres as well, given how well he's got on lap one.
I mean, he certainly had bite off the start line, although it's a rolling start. But when you drop the throttle, with the amount of horsepower and torque that these engines have got, you can spin up your rear wheels in spite of traction control as well, spin up the rear wheels. And Engelhardt got massive grip and bite off that start to thrust himself into the lead, 4.4 seconds at the end of one lap. Andrew Watson in fourth place, fastest first sector time of all. Again, we believe on a set of wet weather tyres.
So there, coming up towards turn 5, Nico Bastien has gone a little bit wide. Michael Meadows tries to get in on the act as well, but it's Engelhardt ahead of Andrew Watson, who is going very, very impressively indeed. Both of those lapping in the low 42s, suggesting the Lamborghini might well be on wets as well. So if that is the case, push early on, build a gap that you can then preserve to the end of the 25 minutes, but it's a gamble.
It's a big gamble indeed, and the track is on the racing line getting clearer. There's the problem on the outside of turn 7. You can see is the 6 Mercedes struggles, or 35 Mercedes struggles for traction, and now about to get mugged by the Audi, and there's not an awful lot you can do around here.
So we understand that Christian Engelhardt is on slicks. Big off there. That's again the Attempto 66, isn't it? So that is Stein's concourse going off the road and back on again. There's a car very definitely on slick tyres. So Engelhardt on slicks doing a masterful job up front, getting away.
The benefit of getting the lead into turn 1 and then being able to drive at his own pace with that confidence and not worried about somebody trying to dive bomb you into turn 2, and he's just pulling away the gap. Well, the gap actually now is reduced because it's Andrew Watson in this car, the BMW, who's closed down. That lead was initially 4.4 seconds, now it's only 3.7 seconds. So Andrew Watson and the BMW are absolutely mullering track conditions, but for how long can he contain that pace?
He's got another 20 minutes, hasn't he, before the pit window opens. So sooner or later the tyres are going to drop off the edge of a cliff, as there Stuart Leonard tries to have a go on the inside line against Norbert Siedler as they come into turn 1. Stuart Leonard, who will give way to Robin Fritz, tiptoes up the inside line, tries to get the power down, but it is there the Lexus that fends him off for the moment. So Andrew Watson has done the fastest lap of the race. We've only had, in fairness, 2 laps, 1 proper flying lap. There, Peter Schotthorst goes wide and almost takes 26 Audi of Neil Stephenhart with him.
You just can't slow down. There's just not enough traction on the front wheels, even the rear wheels, to slow you down again in turn 2. The track falls away from you. It's one of those tricky corners. If you get loose and get wide, then it just will drag you out to the edge of the circuit.
There again, sideways, Peter Schotthorst, he's about to go one place down, isn't he? Because here comes Norbert Siedler, wide in, he'll get the undercut, tight out of the corner. This is turn 5. The Stuart Leonard behind the Stein Schotthorst there as well as they sprint along towards the chicane now. Siedler still can't quite find a way by.
Funny, here we see the start again, but watch the Lamborghini there, pops out from behind in the 3rd row of the grid, just has traction, just has got speed and just can carry it all the way down. And no one, look, they're all looking to the left, wondering who's coming down the outside of the track where it's going to be drier. No one thought to look down the inside of the track where it's still probably at its wettest.
And then, with all that pace, Engelhardt still got it slowed down. The car quivered a little bit under braking, but safely through the first corner. An absolutely outstanding getaway there. And so Christian Engelhardt it is who leads the pack. This, on the opening lap, was the fight for second between Nico Jamin and Nico Bastien. The two of them running way, way wide. And Gottfried Grasser, for the moment, is a happy man as he watches on from the pit bunker, as Andrew Watson is 5 seconds back. Engelhardt now has done the fastest lap of the race. No, he hasn't, because now the fastest lap is Dries Van Thorp, who is down in 8th place.
So Dries Van Thorp, for the first time, getting half a decent run out of his car, because the number 2 Audi had a miserable Friday. They got very little running in practice this morning. They got the mechanical ills sorted out, but they didn't get any time to work on the chassis and get the aerodynamic package sorted. So it's a race of progress during the race.
You're on board with Michael Meadows, and you're 5th at the moment. So it is Mercedes 3, 4, 5, but 2 is BMW and 1 is Lamborghini. And right now, Engelhardt is 5 seconds up the road. So from what looked like it was going to be a Mercedes route, the whole thing is turned on its head. Christian Engelhardt leads the way. He and Mirko Bortolotti won that very first race of the season at Zolder, and leading here with an advantage that's building all the time.
And it was notable on the lap just coming on to the end of the 3rd lap, coming on to pit straight, that Andrew Watson in the BMW, currently in 2nd, was going right tight up against the pit wall, because that's where there was the most amount of moisture remaining on the straight. So he will now be beginning to feel the effects of what's happening to those wet weather tyres. As the track gets more and more dry, the tyre will just eventually, the level of grip will just disappear, and he will end up having to make a pit stop. We've still got, well, we've got to wait until 25 minutes into the session, and we're, what, some 6 or 8 minutes.
So there's a long way to go yet as Engelhardt continues, as does Christian Kleen, to bring down sector times. Everybody getting quicker, the road is getting drier. Look now how much the track surface has changed in coloration there, coming towards turn 13. We're getting a warning about track limits for 82, and that is the Loris Hezemann's Lamborghini. Now look, Andrew Watson is dropping back. He's lost out to Nico Jamin, who is up into second. Here comes Bastien, here comes Meadows for third and fourth. And Andrew Watson makes the BMW as wide as possible. He's got to go to the wet part of the road as well to keep the tyres cool, but he's on borrowed time now, is he not? Because look, he's lost one place and he's got the rest of them crawling all over him. Meadows is ahead of Bastien, and it won't be long surely before he's ahead of the BMW. You're riding with Meadows now.
Well, there's 2 against 1, so Andrew Watson, whichever way he looks, he's going to be challenged by the 2 following Mercedes. Michael Meadows on the inside, Andrew Watson looking for the wide line, followed by Nico Bastien, who's trying to go the long way around the outside of Michael Meadows, and I think he's just about done it and succeeded.
So Michael Meadows loses a place to Nico Bastien. Delay behind the BMW. Michael goes wide. He's back on the road. The Mercedes coming under attack now, though, from number 1, because Alex Riberas goes through in the Audi. The car that leads the championship, the Sprint Cup Championship, goes through. Fastest man on the circuit, Norbert Siedler, at the moment, down in 16th place. There is the order, the top 20 as they come out of turn 5. So now Engelhardt leads the way from Nico Jamin in second spot. Can that gap come down? You're on board now with Alex Riberas, and he's looking to gain another place, so they hustle on up now towards turns 8 and 9.
And everybody now will be cursing Andrew Watson, because they know that they've got the quicker car for track conditions have finally come to them as they go on to the 5th lap. But the pace that BMW's got, Andrew Watson, he's not giving it up because he's there because he chose to start in wet weather tires. He's going to get past now by Jamin coming into turn 12. The speed of the Mercedes should, but look down the inside, he still is able to use the pace of the BMW to protect himself. And again, 5 cars all backing up behind the BMW into turn 13.
He's the cork in the bottle. Round the outside goes Bastien, and the inside goes Meadows. But everywhere they want to be, there's this BMW in the way. 3 wide, look, at the inside Bastien. Round the outside goes Michael Meadows. Brilliant move, he's got back ahead of number 1 Audi. So up into 3rd now is Nico Bastien. 4th is Meadows, and 5th is almost everybody else. Andrew Watson is just ahead as they come over the timing line, but behind him, Dries Van Thor is up into 6th. Down to 7th has gone Riberas. He's on the inside line. Look at the 2 Audis side by side. Round the outside there goes the white Audi of Simon Gachet. He's got past 1, he's got past 2, he's got past 3. Has he on the outside? Not quite. Andrew Watson doesn't give him much room. And look, Riberas has dropped back now behind Christian Kleen. So Riberas is now down to 9th.
I mean, it's just you make your decisions and you point your car where you think you can make room. Dries Van Thor dives up the inside of Christopher Haase, and he tries to get that position, make it stick. You've got the Lexus directly behind. You got on board with Alex Riberas. And when you've got so many cars all jockeying for one bit of the racetrack, you make your move and you can get it right. You can be wrong-footed and think. Unfortunately for Alex Riberas, he got wrong-footed at the wrong time.
Isn't rain a great thing, though, for motor racing? Because
stability.
Exactly. What was being predicted after qualifying was there. Andrew Watson goes wide and loses out now to Dries Van Thor for 5th place. After he got pole position, Nico Bastien said very important that because he just can't overtake round here. And in contrast, as Watson goes wide, thanks to the rain and different tyre choices, we are having a brilliant battle up front.
Brilliant for us, brilliant for the viewers, not great for those that are following Andrew Watson, because they know that they're being, their pace, their performance is being hindered by that of the BMW on a set of tyres that is now probably way, way past its best, and in these track conditions it's only going to deteriorate even further.
There is Bas Linders looking on in the pit garages. Andrew Watson's now also being given a driving standards flag for disrespecting track limits at turn 4. That's the least of his problems. He's just trying to keep the car on the road with a set of tyres that are now not fit for the conditions. He's lost another place there, look, because round the outside of him goes the charging Simon Gachet. And he's going to lose out also here because Christian Kleen is up behind him. Look, round the outside, Andrew Watson fighting the car. Through goes Kleen, and also Riberas comes through, and he's sideways, and he's off the championship leader spins. He's in the wall. Riberas loses it coming out of the last corner.
Yeah, I don't know if there was contact or not between the BMW and the Audi, but the Audi was on the outside of the track, caught the wet track, the curbing on the exit of turn 14, and once that rotation began, there was nothing Riberas was going to be able to do about it. He might be able to get the car rotated and get it running again, but clearly a misjudgment. It may have been a bit of a hip and shoulder from the BMW, but I don't think there was any contact, unless we can get a view on the left side of the BMW. It doesn't look as if there was anything that we can see. I think just Ribero's got too wide on the exit of turn 14, caught the wet curbing, and once she was gone, all it was going to do was go across the track and end up against the pit wall.
I had a horrible feeling he was kind of touched and falls wide as we go full course yellow. There is the reason. Number one gets going, but it's got damaged rear suspension. Look, you can see left rear corner is broken, so Alex Riberas will limp to the pit lane. We go full course yellow because that car needed retrieving. It's got going, but to all intents and purposes, that car's out of the race.
Black and white flag to car 37, disrespecting track limits at turn 4. Could this full course yellow not have come at a better time? Because will that give an opportunity for the BMW, if they want to, stay out?
Yeah.
It's going to give them a bit of breathing space.
Yeah.
Because the clock's still ticking down. We've just got 11.5 minutes before the pit lane will open for the mandatory set of pit. So if Andrew Watson can hang in behind, well, the track's gone green again, so we're back at the races.
There he is, and he's about to lose out because that's Hubert Haupt getting up the inside of him. Also through there, look, is Norbert Siedler, and also darting through Loris Hezemans. Andrew Watson, the danger is that he perseveres to the window opening and he loses a lap because the car's going to lose so much pace against those on slick tyres now.
I mean, the decision to start on the wets at the time was a gamble. It worked initially, got up to second place, now it's working against them. So whether he's going to stay out and run, or just bite the bullet, come in, put on a set of slicks, knowing that he's going to have to come in another 10 minutes at least to put on the mandatory set of tyre changes that you will do. And he's gone from running second all the way down, it's just falling down. You can't even count how quickly it's falling down.
And it will continue to drop, won't it? Because now he's in 16th. Right, here is the incident. So have a look. The Audi comes on the outside of the BMW, drifts wide.
Well, there was contact, but the Audi was also, the left rear was on the curbing, and it was beginning to me, it was beginning, you can just about whether the contact was the cause of the car ultimately ending up against the wall, or whether it was the Audi trying to come back off. You know, the BMW was there, it ain't going to disappear.
No.
So that'll be an interesting view for the stewards to have a look at and address whether they feel that that was the responsibility of one or other, or just a racing incident.
But if you're overtaking on the outside where it's wetter, you're always going to be in jeopardy, aren't you?
You are, and it's the curbing in particular that was the problem. The wet curbing was the what caught out Alex Ribeiro on a set of those of the Pirelli slick tyres, whereas the BMW was just finishing its exit of the corner on its probably knackered set of wets.
There is number one into the pit lane. I'm intrigued to see the gap coming down. I know we've had that full course yellow just interrupting things. Let's see the last lap. Engelhardt's back up to a proper pace. He has just done the best lap of the race, a 1:47.251. Alex Riberas comes in. If they can do any suspension repairs, they can get the car out as a test session. But in terms of points out of this race, forget it.
Yeah, what they'll do is put it in the garage, take that rear corner off and check around the gearbox and other areas, as well as the suspension itself, and get it ready for Christopher Mies to take it over for tomorrow's 1 hour sprint.
Fastest lap of the race, third placed car, Nico Bastian. Engelhardt leads by 7.6 seconds from Nico Jamin. There is the number 6 Mercedes, which is 10th, Hubert Haupt. He's got Norbert Siedler tucked up behind him now. So good little fight developing between these two as they drop down the hill towards turn 2. The fastest lap of the race, as I say, Nico Bastian, who is now also taking chunks of time out of those ahead of him in the first sector. The incident with car 1 is going to be looked at after the race.
Yes, and I think they need to get both drivers in and have their view of what happened and look at it and look at it and look at it. But when you're going around the outside and the track has been wet and the curbs are as wet as they would have been on the exit of turn 14, and you ride the curb, whether there was an assist from the BMW before or it came as a consequence of the Audi coming back across the track, that's something for the race stewards to look at in greater detail. They've got other camera angles and views that they can examine before they will make a judgment.
So there you've got the leading group. Engelhardt leads Jamin, Bastian and Meadows. In other words, Lamborghini, Mercedes, Mercedes, Mercedes. 5th is the top Audi of Dries Van Thort. 6th Audi, Simon Gachet. 7th Lexus, Christian Klein. 8th Lamborghini, Ezequiel Perez Compact. 9th Mercedes, Vladimir Aftoev. 10th Mercedes, there it is, the all-blue car of Hubert Haupt going into shot now.
So it's begun to quiet down a little bit, the hysterical opening laps, and everybody was looking for position, trying to keep the car on the racetrack, trying to keep out of trouble. now the track conditions are at the point where the racing line is a virtual dry racing line, but you still have to look at the 82 coming right. There we go, and that was just almost inevitable. You could see it was at the beginning of a spin for Hazeman, and he fulfilled the prophecy.
So Loris Hazeman's rotates, loses a couple of places, loses another one. There, number 751, Kenny Harbel, the American-based Australian in the Sprint Cup. He was a welcome visitor to the Spa 24 Hours race in Suzuka's 10-hour race last week, but he is leading the Pro-Am class here ahead of Piti Bieron-Bahti and Neil Stevenart. So Kenny Harbel, with a very quick Tristan Vautier as the co-driver, leads the class. This is Loris Hazeman's. It slithered, he almost caught it, and then it was a long, lazy loop, and around he went.
Yeah, it was beginning to go as he sort of entered into the final turn. Tried to keep it balanced on the steering and on the throttle, but inevitably the old pendulum effect took over, and around she went. No harm done, maybe a bit of a flat spot or two on one of the four wheels and tyres. But there we go, back to a little battle further down the field for 9th and 10th.
Vladimir Avtuev keeping them at bay for the moment. Fastest lap of the race still claimed by Nico Bastian. The lead gap, though, is coming down. Engelhardt 6.8 seconds ahead last time, and the Mercedes behind are certainly lapping quicker than the Lamborghini. So we are not far away from the pit window opening. We're about 6 minutes or so off that, but just monitor the lead gap, because the Mercedes 87, 90, 88, they are catching the leading car. It's just gone over the line. That last lap by Engelhardt was a 46.6, which was good. This, in the meantime, is the fight for 9th place.
Yeah, there's a three-way battle going on. But the one strength, again, that the 63 Lamborghini has is the Grasser Racing team have been outstanding, along with WRT and some others, in the driver change, the pit stop, the wheel change. And assuming that they repeat that kind of performance in the pit lane, there's a good reason to believe that they can consolidate with Mirko Bortolotti behind the wheel of the 63 Lamborghini in the lead.
Now, Nico Jamin here has done the fastest lap of the race. He did a 46.0 last time. That was 6/10 quicker than the race leader. But on this next lap, Engelhardt has done the absolute best in the first sector. So perhaps he's responding now to the challenge coming from the Mercedes behind.
He will be kept aware, either by radio or by just simply the old traditional pit board on the pit wall. There is the race leader, Christian Engelhardt. You can see how much energy he's putting into the car. That's giving you an indication as to how much confidence, grip level the Lamborghini's giving up now. Again, with the 87 Mercedes, Nicolas Jamin behind, followed by Nico Bastian. But it's the 19 right now who's fastest first sector time. And I mean, we're getting these spikes popping up, car driver combinations. Where'd that come from? Who's done that time?
That's Perez Compact, isn't it? Andrew Watson is on his last warning for track limit, so is Loris Hazeman. Remember, Andrew Watson was second after that brilliant first lap. There he is, he loses another place. He's now down to 19th. He's also 1 minute and 11 seconds behind the leader, bearing in mind he was second overall early on. That shows you how the tyres have gone.
Yeah, I mean, he's hanging on by his fingernails. All he could do is just brave it out. He's got another 3.5 minutes before the pit lane will open. He'll be, I suspect, the first car into the pit lane and get on a set of sticks as he hands the car over.
Now the lead gap is down again, 4.7. Despite Engelhardt doing a good first sector, Nico Jamin is consistently chipping away. Nico has just done the fastest lap of the race. Now the real fascination is going to come in the second stint, isn't it? Because he will give way to Denis Bulatov. With all due deference, I would propose that Mirko Bortolotti is a little bit quicker than Bulatov. He's also more experienced in the car he will take over.
Indeed, but that's quite a lot of time that Christian Engelhardt has lost. It was 6 seconds, now it's 4.7 seconds. The pace of Nicolas Jamin is very, very impressive. To be 1.5 seconds quicker than the race leader, there is the race leader on the last lap, that was lap 11. So that's a bunch of time now. There's no traffic that I can see that would have caused Christian Engelhardt to lose 1.5 seconds. He is coming up to some of the tail enders. Whether that was the case on the previous lap, he has gotten ahead of one of those cars we can't quite see. I think it was one of the Mercedes. He's now got an Audi ahead of him. That's going to be another issue. The Audi will not want to get offline to let the race leader go through, but he might be required to do so, because if he gets a waved yellow flag as Mirko Bortolotti begins to prepare, and I'm again watching Engelhardt took the decision, he forced the decision to push through the Audi around at turn 11 and gets through cleanly.
So Mirko Bortolotti is getting ready to go, and still Jamin quicker in sector 1, quicker in sector 2. So the Mercedes is getting closer and closer and closer. You get the feeling though that the second stint is going to be fascinating, because there are other cars that will of course have a different driver of differing pace. They will rise and fall accordingly. So we're almost at the pit window opening as there, Mirko Bortolotti gets ready to take over the leading car. The fact that he's ready now suggests that they're going to bring that in at the start of the window.
That would be my view, certainly with a minute and a half remaining before pit stop window actually opens. Mirko Bortolotti is getting ready and prepared. The second place, Nicolas Jamin, slides down the inside. That last lap was a 146, I beg your pardon, 0.8. Still quicker than the race leader, so the gap down to 4.5 seconds. So Christian Engelhardt may well, as you suggest, David, be in the pits at an earlier than later moment.
And a drive-through for Andrew Watson for exceeding track limits. He's had enough warnings. So trying to keep the car on the track on the wrong tyre, I'm afraid, is no defence. He's getting a drive-through.
And he has to take the drive-through. Oh, there goes, and hope.
That's Hubble. That's the Pro-Am leader losing it at the last corner.
Again, I wonder, was that just exiting the corner too early, getting the rear onto the curbing? Harmless spin, maybe again, the only danger is he got a set of flat spots on his tyres which will give him uncomfortable vibrations. But Andrew Watson, I think he's been hanging on. He's got zero grip.
Yeah, you're right. And there, Kenny Hubble keeps his lead in Pro-Am. Such is the pace of that car. There's another driving standards flag for track limits, and it is Ezekiel Perez Compact. There, Dennis Bulatov is Vladimir Avtoev is keeping at bay Hubert Haupt, who in turn has got Seidler behind him, and then it's Stein Kochhorst in the Attempto Audi next in the queue. The pit window is imminent. Number one, as far as we are aware, is a retirement from the race. The team working on the car, but Alex Riberas effectively is out.
So this group of 4 or 5 cars be battling away, but no one of the 4 was able to make any spectacular move. The Lexus is the one different than the 2 Mercedes, the one Lexus, the Audi behind. This is the repaired Lexus, the car that had a brand new chassis to replace the chassis as Andrew Watson makes his drive-through.
So he gets the drive-through done, and he'll be in imminently as well to give way for the pit stop. The leading gap is down again. It's 3.9 seconds. Nico Jamin has done another fastest lap of the race. We're into the 45s now, 1:45.868. Why is the Lamborghini struggling for pace? Is it just that this is a Mercedes circuit?
I don't know. I'm surprised because ordinarily the 63 Lamborghini, where this year it hasn't had the outright pace, I think that's not been down to the car's handling and road holding. It's been down to maybe other factors. I don't know where that time differential is going, but Nicolas Jamin in the 87 Mercedes, one thing is clear, driving the wheels off that car.
Absolutely. Very, very impressive drive, this. It's getting cooler, by the way. It's getting a bit grayer. I don't know whether there's any more rain on the way. Certainly there is more rain forecast, but is it going to strike during this next 35 minutes? We are currently on lap 14. It is race 1 of the weekend in the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. Christian Engelhardt, who could well be on an in-lap because the pit window is open, has just done the absolute best in the first sector. He is determined to get away from Nico Jamin, and the fans in the stands are bracing themselves because, as I say, there might be a bit more grim weather on the way. There, Avtoev keeps Haupt at bay. Getting out of the way is the Pro-Am Audi number 21, which has got Christian Maltrek at the wheel of it. And look at this, Hubert Haupt in the middle of this sandwich. He's trying to attack Avtoev and keep at bay the Lexus of Norbert Seidler.
Norbert Seidler, I think, is getting a little bit impatient because he's been sat behind these 2 Mercedes pretty much since the lights went out. Now the racetrack maybe coming to the Lexus. Remember, it didn't have much fun qualifying. That was the car ended up in the barrier on the exit of turn 4, and the team have done a great job turning it around to get that car repaired, looking as immaculate as it was when it first turned up here this weekend.
Leader through, and that lap by Engelhardt was a 45.9. In comes Michael Meadows to give way to Raffaele Marciello. Another fastest lap of the race to Jamin, a 45.4. He's taken another half a second out of Engelhardt.
And Dries van Voor up into 4th place as well. He's also taken the place away from Michael Meadows, so that's Michael Meadows down to 5th. Raffaele Marciello will be taking that car over very shortly indeed as Meadows. Well, that was the reason why Meadows came into the pits. So that's where the position has been lost.
And they're also in 55, which is Peters Krockhorst for Attempto. So the pit lane getting a bit busier.
I'm looking skyward, and all I can see is 50 shades of grey.
The sun's gone, hasn't it?
Definitely has.
As I said a moment ago, it's got cooler, noticeably. It's not as bright. Is there any more rain imminent? That's going to throw things up in the air if we do get it right. Absolute best, Sector 1, Dries van Voor. Michael Meadows' work done. Can Raffaele Marciello get a win out of this race? The car heads down the pit lane.
Depends really where he returns to the field. If he gets into a bit of clear air and he gets the opportunity, certainly nobody behind him has got one of those Audis, so he may have to make a pretty aggressive as Stuart Lennon comes in to hand over to Robin Friends. There's going to be an interesting opening lap for Raffaele Marcello, he will want to clear the Audi and not get bogged down, particularly if he's got a fresh set of rubber on that 88 Mercedes.
That's a good throw of the seat by Stuart Leonard. It was a good catch from the mechanic. 63, this is the leading car, Christian Engelhardt. So he's on lap 15. Is he in this time?
Yes,
he is.
So the Grasser Racing team, the car that has led this race since the lights went out, the gap between first and second there is now the race leader, Nicolas Jamin, was 3.4 seconds when they came across the line at the end of lap 14. That's academic now because the Lamborghini in the pit lane, and wait to see what Grasser Racing can do to get that car turned around. Also be careful in the pit lane. If it is still wet in the pit lane, that's another area where drivers traditionally are getting caught out.
So Mirko Bortolotti will take over. Nico Jamin has done another fastest lap of the race, a 1:45.383. So now it is Jamin from Bastien from Vanthor.
Great, I mean, just watching the Grasser Racing team go to work here. Great operations by everybody. The car's off the jacks, rolling, gets clear of the car coming down the pit lane. There is the 88 Raffaele Marcello. And has he cleared the Audi that was just ahead of him? No, he hasn't.
No, but that car's going to blend into the pit lane, I think, isn't it? So the road will open up. But there, look, is the leader, as was, and he will maintain track position over this Mercedes, clearly.
Yes, indeed. So that's more than the length of the pit straight. The advantage, well, there it is. You see the Mercedes just in the very background. So the best part of 10 or plus seconds between what is now first and second once it all washes through. Nicolas Jamin is still the race leader because he's yet to make his pit stop. But Raffaele Marcello, now having the Audi that he was following, it's gone into the pits for its mandatory stop. So let's watch and see the opening laps of Mirko Bortolotti and that of Raffaele Marcello.
And the closing laps of Nico Jamin. This is the race leader, the fastest man on the track. And of course, by continually pushing like this, he's hoping that that will give the car the opportunity to rejoin in the lead once Denis Bulatov is behind the wheel of it. So 87 Mercedes, is it in this time? Yes, a late decision, but Nico Jamin does go for the pit lane. In he comes.
Yes, what he was doing was maximising his entry speed. The pit lane speed limit comes here. There's a white line, crosses it. Well, there it is now. He's going to go down to 50 kilometres per hour. But the bit between when you exit the racetrack onto that pit lane, the quicker you can get down it, the more time you gain. So a great drive, a superb opening stint by Nicolas Jamin, and I mean, very impressive and difficult conditions for everybody in the opening lap.
So the pressure is on Denis Bulatov, who will get on board that car, and it comes. So Nico Jamin, the Frenchman, that's done quite a bit of his racing living in America, he gets on board, and so he gets out. Denis Bulatov takes over. Of course, that was the car that Felix Morales drove at the start of the season. Bulatov relatively new into the team.
Not the best pit stop. One of those wheels got a bit errant round the front of the Mercedes, so I suspect that the Lamborghini, there's the Mercedes about to roll. The Lamborghini is about to get back into the lead as it goes down. There it is, midway down, pit straight at full speed, where the Mercedes is still running on the speed limit. Now can get up to speed. The gap between Mirko Bortolotti leading and second place Nicolas Jamin, Denis Bulatov, is going to be around about 3.5–4 seconds.
Fastest lap of the race, Raffaele Marcello, 1:45.003 on his first proper flying lap. So Raffaele Marcello means business. So there, Bortolotti leads, second is Bulatov. That is Vladimir Avtoev giving way now to Alexander Kornev. There's the BMW through, which Andrew Watson started. And that is now Lucas Moraes at the wheel, and the car is down in 19th place.
And yes, and also it is, of course, on slicks, as it wasn't when the race started. The advantage being to Andrew Watson on the first 3 laps. Thereafter it went backwards quicker than you can select reverse gear. So all eyes will be on the 88 Mercedes of Raffaele Marcello and the 63 Lamborghini of Mirko Bortolotti, waiting to see what Mirko Bortolotti's first flying lap is. We've only had an out lap from the 63 Lamborghini, waiting for it to come across start-finish line.
There is Marcello. First sector a little bit down on this lap, but he's really pushing. Look at the way the car is moving around. Do you expect anything less from Marcello?
I mean, he's a great driver to watch. He really energizes a car. Some drivers are timid of a car. He is nothing. He's the opposite. He takes control of it, and he is the master of the Mercedes, not the Mercedes the master of the driver.
Absolutely right. So he's done the best lap of the race, and he's now got 28 minutes in which to try to fight back and see what he can do. Now, Bortolotti is going to be a tough nut to crack, but I reckon he should get Bulatov before the end.
I would think Denis Bulatov is going to be vulnerable there. We see the Lamborghini, and directly behind it, that is Bulatov. Where's the third car? That's Raffaele Marcello. Flirts with the curb on the exit of turn 14 kicks up a bit of the spray, that's the residue of the rain that fell. Just happens to come out, the Audi coming out of the pit lane just ahead of him. That's not ideal for Raffaele Marcello. He needs to clear it, trying to get down into turn 3 or at the latest into turn 4.
Bortolotti a 45.4, Marciello 44.8, 6 tenths quicker, and rain is being reported up at the chicane at the top of the lap. So there's rain at one section of the circuit, rain reported, and the lead gap is coming down. This is building up to be an absolutely sensational finish, isn't it?
Well, it's a nightmare for drivers and for teams, because they do what they think is the right thing. They started, the majority started on slicks, and they'll get through a very difficult situation in the opening laps. Then the track is sufficiently dry now after the mandatory pit stop, where they've all gone onto a fresh set of slicks. The prospect of further rain falling, and the rain that fell prior to this race getting underway about 2 hours ago was very substantial indeed. And if we get similar conditions, it will be lucky if you can get back into the pit at a walking pace on the slicks until you can then fit a set of wet weather tyres.
So the chicane is where the rain is, or being reported at least, and that's just around this section of the circuit. So there, Marciello hustles on in the traffic. Into the pit lane has come Nico Bastien, in has come Simon Gachet. So everybody now at the end of the window cycling through. And although the rain is being reported by the race director, it's very, very hard to find. It might just have been a passing few sprinkles, but that message has now gone off the timing screen, so perhaps the panic is over. So Bortolotti leads the way, and here, look, Raffaele Marciello stuck in the traffic.
And that's the problem that Marciello had to face, because he knew that once he came out that he was behind. As he still is behind, the Audi coming down, start, finish straight. He's only the Mercedes now, the 90, also Jack Manchester behind the wheel. So Bortolotti's got to dive, and again the Audi using the racetrack to his own advantage.
It's Will Stevens, it's a battle for position this. So this is the Audi fending off the Mercedes, as Will Stevens is quite entitled to do. But Raffaele Marciello looking the quicker, but he's just a bit stuck. There's the gap on the inside, Marciello goes for it, the Mercedes goes through, goes a little bit wide. The Audi, Will Stevens, the ex-Grand Prix driver at the wheel, tries to fight back, but Raffaele Marciello is through.
When you saw that yellow nose pointing way into the turn 2, the apex, but didn't even make the apex, he only got the entry, but he barged his way through. I mean, barged by the fact that he didn't have any contact, but he just force of presence or whatever, of state of mind or whatever he is in. He said, I'm going to pass you, Will Stevens, and don't resist me.
Yeah, make your own arrangements, coming through. So, while that's been going on, Bortolotti, who leads the way, is doing absolute best in the sectors. In second place is Bulatov, and then third is going to be Jack Manchester. And there he is, look, already on his outlap, reeled in by Marciello. So this is going to change in a moment for third place.
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument about who's the quicker of the two drivers in the 88 and the 90 Mercedes. Jack Manchester still young, learning his craft. And of course, you would like to think that there'd be a little bit of cooperation between teammates, that they think, well, the smart thing is not to hold up potential race winner with a car that, while it was outstanding with Nico Bastien, it is not going to have the same level of performance at this point with Jack Manchester.
So Mirko Bortolotti through. He's just lapped in the 45s. Where is the second place Mercedes of Nico Jamin? Now Dennis Bulatov. It will go across the line 7.4 seconds back. Third, fourth will be Marciello, and then Manchester. So Raffaele Marciello has got to make up 13.4 seconds. He's not going to do that, is he?
Well, 24 minutes. I mean, traffic is the only thing that might be a factor. Of course, if it does suddenly become a very wet racetrack, that changes everything. But the reality is, you think that Mirko Bortolotti's got enough in hand, with enough experience, certainly, to be able to use what advantage that he has over the 88 Mercedes to keep the lead until the flag.
Now, Jack Manchester here is keeping Will Stevens at bay for the moment, fourth and fifth. There's a drive-through penalty for the Caldarelli compact Lamborghini for track limit abuse at this next corner that you're looking at, turn 4. There is Jack Manchester. He goes through that left-hander with Will Stevens tucked up behind him now.
It's the car that gets the penalty, not the driver. So poor Andrea Caldarelli, you can almost feel sorry for him. If he may have transgressed once, but the car has done it maybe 3 or 4 times, and he's the one that pops the penalty.
Christopher Hasse, having taken over from Simon Gachet in the 25 Santaloc Audi, has just done the absolute best first sector. So he's also trying to get back into the hunt. He's chasing after this car, number 2, Will Stevens, who runs in 5th place at the moment. So there, look, you've got the Audi on the back of the Jack Manchester Mercedes. One of the Silver Cup cars is number 90, but that's being led at the moment by 87, Jamin and Bulatov. So Jack Manchester here doing a very good job, isn't he?
Yes.
Under pressure.
And fairness, he maybe not at the pace of Nico Bastian, but he is doing a good job on merit, because he's not giving Will Stevens and the number 2 Audi any opportunity whatsoever to get a nose up the inside or to try and do something to take that position away, which one would have assumed, if you look at the relative skills or experience of both drivers, it ought to have happened maybe a lap or so earlier.
Bortolotti a 45.2, Marciello 44.6.
That's good.
It's another chunk of time. It's down to 12.7 seconds.
That's a quick lap from Will Stevens goes down the inside. Jack Manchester really, he's going to make the undercut. Can he get well, good thinking.
Well done.
Good thinking.
And he gets it back, look, but he's on the wrong line for turn 3 coming down the hill, because here, look, Will Stevens is going to have the inside line. The road's going to come to him. He'll get the job done, but Jack Manchester gave him room, slowed the car down, as you say, got the undercut.
He got the undercut. He saw what was happening, but he got the benefit of Will Stevens running slightly wide on the exit of turn 1, and then the situation's been reversed now back up the hill, so Will Stevens has got the upper hand and will be able to, in my view, pull away bit by bit from the 90 Mercedes. But interesting, Jack Manchester, much less experienced than Will Stevens. Oh, damage to the right rear. That's an Attempto Audi, and it's which one? It's 55, which has now been taken over by Pierre Caffer. A bit of contact there, I suspect. But it's gone, that little bit of bodywork. Maybe it's just the bodywork was such a fine touch to the rear body, but anyway, further down the field in 13th position. Marciello has taken 6/10 out of Bortolotti in the middle sector alone. This is where the contact occurred. Yeah, little rub, isn't it, from Caldarelli? Well, gentle hands. So a bit of a kiss between the two there. There's the leading car coming over the line. Mirko Bortolotti it is, up front. Maintaining the gap. I mean, I'm talking about sector times, I'm talking about gaps coming down, but Bortolotti's a very savvy campaigner. He knows exactly how hard he has to push. He can win by 1,000th as long as he wins. Yes, and I mean, his battle, obviously, that we're thinking about where the 88 Mercedes is, but actually it's this car. It's in second place, driven very well indeed by Denis Bulletov. Yeah. He is only 6.8 seconds behind, probably less likely to threaten than the third place, but it's a much bigger task. Still that 12.1 seconds gap between first and third, and with 20 minutes remaining, every lap goes by. If the gap isn't reducing significantly now, it's going to be tough. Hasse versus Manchester. Jack Manchester hangs onto the place just, and look at Christopher Hasse snapping at his heels, one side and then the other. Christopher Hasse is another hugely experienced driver, and he is desperately keen to try to find a way through. Mercedes is a large car, occupies pretty much all of the racing line and maybe a bit more. The Audi is slightly more, you might describe it, of the nimble variety, a little bit in terms of its handling, a little bit more a sharper car in terms of turning. But the Mercedes is such a good car in these conditions, where the track has gone from wet to park dry to dry, and it helps a young driver, gives confidence, allows him to grow. Jack Manchester is doing a good job here. It's a circuit, of course, that's new to him, keeping Christopher Hasse at bay. Christopher's been around the block many times. Marciello, in the meantime, absolute best middle sector, pushing on. Another 7/10 pulled out from Bortolotti's advantage. He'd like a safety car, and so too would Christopher Hasse, because that would perhaps give him a chance on a restart to get past the Mercedes. Here is another of the fascinations of GT3 and the balanced performance, differing cars, where they're strong, where they're weak, and Hasse eventually gets up the inside at turn 13, prizes open the door, and through he goes. Yeah, and I mean, you put that down to one thing only, and that's experience. Nico Bastian having a little look on what's going on, animated, as he would understandably be. Looking at his car coming across the line. Jack Manchester now into 6th place. So not much that Nico Bastian can do. He did all he had as the capacity during his stint, and he understands that in co-driving with Jack Manchester that there will be days when there will be a bigger differential in track performance than others. You see there a drive-through penalty for Pereira for track limit abuse of the 82 Lamborghini from him, but a lot done earlier on. We saw all the warnings for Loris Hesemann. So Fearless Frank comes in to serve the drive-through. Caldarelli is serving his at the same time. So you've got 2 of the 3 GRT Lambos in the pits for penalties. And Gottfried Grasser's look, you can see him looking intently onto the screen and wondering, well, 2 out of 3, please don't let the third of the 3 transgress anyway, because we've got this race. It's our race to lose. That's the position that they're in. And it was all one off the start, wasn't it, really?
So people saying pre-race about the track conditions, but Mirko Bortolotti's co-driver, Christian Engelhardt, made that demon getaway, and Gottfried Grasser looks on in the pit bunker. The car leading now by 6.4 seconds. Bulleton is catching back up a little bit as well, but I still get the feeling that Bortolotti is driving within himself. He's got this reasonable advantage. He doesn't have to overdrive, he doesn't have to risk anything, he can just maintain the gap.
Yep, and that's what he's doing. He's keeping the gap, particularly between the first and third. There's the second place. Dennis Bulletov coming across. That gap was 6 seconds the last time around, still 6 seconds between first and second. The gap between first and third is down to 10 seconds. So a little bit of progress coming from Raffaele Marciello in the third place. But you know, again, clock ticking down, just 17 minutes remaining and 10 seconds. It's almost, you know, you're looking slightly less than 10 a second a lap. But there are lots of factors that still could play out. Whether it is one of those factors, it's still unpredictable. Just a little slide from Marciello as he came into turn 2. Needs to be careful not to maybe use the tyre too aggressively and then consequently find that the deterioration in grip levels are beginning to have an effect on his overall performance. Keep an eye on what Marciello is doing on these laps. Last lap was a 144.7, his best is a 144.6. So it's pretty consistent lapping from the Italian.
Runs wide there coming out of turn 5. Andrea Caldarelli is being given the driving standards flag now. Number 19 Lamborghini on board with Marciello, and he's up the curb. The car started by Michael Meadows. He's 10.5 seconds back now, so he's gained, what, 5 seconds since the start of the stint. He is absolutely storming. Can he get there in time? He certainly ought to be up with Bulletov by the very end, but I think that Bortolotti is out of reach. Now here, Will Stevens, 4th. Christopher Haase, 5th. The two Audis as one. They are so close. You've got this 8-wheeled R8.
Yes, the number 2 Audi, of course, had a very restricted practice on Friday, so they kind of catch up with car setup, whereas the 25 ran flawlessly all the way through Friday and gave that team all the information they need. So Will Stevens having to battle also, as Will pointed out this morning, have been doing some LMP2 racing, lightweight, high downforce cars. As Hasse looks up the inside, Will Stevens takes his line, holds his line, doesn't offer the opportunity. Christopher Hasse would have read that and was able to get out of the throttle and avoid any contact.
So Hasse hangs on to the place. Now, the lead gap is down by another second. It's down to 9.5. Marciello, another fastest lap of the race. 4th and 5th come through. It's still Will Stevens ahead of Christopher Hasse as they go down towards turn 1. In 6th spot behind is Jack Manchester, hanging on to 2nd in the Silver Cup. And look, the two Audis as one. Again, up the inside, up the curb goes Hasse. It's a late effort, and Will Stevens slams the door in his face.
Yeah, he had to really take the avoiding action of using the curb to avoid contact with the number 2 Audi. And of course, the curbing is still a little bit on the damp side. Well, there, you can see just how hot it is when one of these cars, when you get out, you're really soaking. But Christopher Hasse here again, watching into turn 1, looks up the inside, but the door is closing, not slam closed, but just gradually closing, and that forced Hasse to use the curbing on the inside, and of course he had then to wait before he could get back onto the throttle as they come through turn 5.
The Santalot team looks on, frustrated here that Will Stevens is still in the way. WRT pleased that he's hanging on to 4th place. So same type of car, 2 different teams, 2 different emotions. We are currently 14 minutes away from the end of the race. The leading gap is going up slightly, and the gap 2nd to 3rd coming down slightly. So we're not done yet. There's still quite a bit to play out of this. 4th and 5th together still.
Yeah, and the problem for Christopher Hasse is his pace is being dictated by the pace of Will Stevens. He's lost the momentum that drew him up to the back of the number 2 Audi, and he's sitting there and he can do nothing other than take a big punt up the inside and hopefully catch Will Stevens out. But in terms of the pace of the number 2 and the number 25, they're virtually identical. So I'll turn 14 to complete the 25th lap. And again, Will Stevens able to pull away sufficiently on this 600-meter or so straight. Hasse again looks, but Will Stevens good on the brakes, able to brake late and keep the car in control, and Christopher Hasse stuck there. Maybe we're going to have a little look into turn 2. Will Stevens will go defensive on the inside. Hasse goes to the outside. Will he attempt the long way around? Can't really do that, and he's not close enough up the inside to try and make the undercut. Try and do the same on the exit of turn 3 and get a run up the hill into turn 4. Turn 4, not a great place to try and pass. It's a one-line corner.
Stevens a little bit wider. Hauser tries to get the momentum, but the gap disappears on the inside at turn 5. Incidentally, we saw early on number 1 Audi out of the race. 17, Robin Fritz has pitted into retirement as well. So Stuart Leonard, the co-driver, second in the championship, is out of the race, and the championship leaders are out of the race. It's not been a good race for WRT. There is 17. So significantly, Stuart Leonard out, and the Riveras Mies car out. The championship's going to be very intriguing after this.
Let's have a look and see what's going to happen on Sunday.
Absolutely. Let's see whether Will Stevens can hang on to his 4th place and salvage something for WRT. Christopher Hauser for Santalok is right on his tail then here as they come down towards turn 12. Hard on the brakes, turn right. Hauser using every millimetre he can find, but almost overdoes it there and slide a little bit deep into the corner. 12 minutes on the clock.
Well, of course, he's also getting the downside of running close to another car. The aerodynamic wash will be taking a little bit of the aero from the front of the 25 Audi, which again inhibits your ability to stick close. And you can see coming through turn 14, he has dropped back, maybe because he realizes I need to just regroup. Also, temperatures, oil, water temperatures, you've got to keep an eye on those. They all run at a critically high level, and if you start going above that, then you've got presets that start sending out signals on your dash.
So there is the fight for 4th. Sun's coming back out again now, so that threat of rain is dissipating quickly. Into the top 6 has gone Albert Costa now in the Lexus 14 at the expense of Jack Manchester's number 90 Mercedes. But Christopher Hauser, and John made the point a lap or so ago, stuck now at his pace being dictated by the car ahead. There is the leader. 1st to 3rd is down to 8 seconds, it's nearly halved. 1st to 2nd is 5.6. There, look, he's Marciello. He is still throwing everything at this.
And you can see just the speed of Marciello coming out of turn 5, 6. Just he is carrying more speed at that part of the racetrack than either the race-leading Lamborghini or the second place Mercedes of Dennis Bulletov. And that's what Raffaello and Marciello brings to the ASP team. He brings just raw pace, speed, and I mean, above all, commitment.
Now Will Stevens, with years of experience of single-seaters up to Formula 1 before he came into GTs and sports prototype racing, he's hanging on to that 4th place. And Christopher Hauser, who has been part of the Audi fabric in GT3 racing for, getting on for a decade now, right there behind him, still looking for a way by. Down they come, through the right at turn 12, so Bortolotti is remaining in the lead of the race by 5 seconds. Bulletov is second, Marciello is 2.5 seconds back, so the change for 2nd place is imminent. 1st to 3rd is 7.5. Out of the right-hander here they come into the last 10 minutes of the race now for this 4th place battle. Stevens and Hauser still running together, but it's concertinaing for the top 3.
Yes, it is, and the gap, the principal gap between 1st and 3rd, the gap between 1st and 2nd is reduced by a smallish amount, but 2nd to 3rd, but 1st to 3rd is the real focal point. 9 minutes, just over 9 minutes, 40 seconds of this race remaining. Raffaele Marciello running on that last lap 0.6 of a second quicker than the race leader. Needs to be more than 0.6 of a second per lap with the time remaining and the gap that they've got. So again, will traffic come into it while we're enjoying this battle with Will Stevens and Christopher Hauser, and you can see inside the Santalok pits and the WR pits, they're all sitting on eggshells waiting to see whether this is going to end up happily or otherwise.
Yeah, indeed. Hauser closing right up, look, as they come into turn 5, trying to force a mistake out of Will Stevens. Is that it? Let's see. Hauser goes one side and then the other. He's on the outside for the approach to the chicane. Can't do it there. Can he get a better drive out of the chicane? Bouncing over the curb. But again, the straights aren't really long enough, are they?
No, they're not. And once you get into the sequence of corners, turn 8, turn 9, then into 10, 11, down to 12, the opportunity is to pass into 12. But because you're going through a sequence of rights and lefts, particularly through the quicker of them, turn 11, which is where they are now. So the gap is sufficient in favour of Will Stevens to consolidate his position, and that's 4th and 5th place battling. Trying to do it in the turn 13, have a sniff down the inside, throw it down the inside, take a punt, whatever expression you care to use. But Christopher Hauser recognises they can't do it. Body work in turn 1. Now whose car? Oh, it's just somebody obviously didn't see it.
No, quite. That's
Dennis Bulletov.
Bulletov going over it. Bulletov has got Marciello virtually on his tail now. 1st to 3rd is 6.9 seconds. 8 minutes to go. There's the fight for 4th. Stevens over the line. Hauser behind him as they go down towards turn 1. Can Christopher Hauser make his move? He goes to the outside. He wants to try to get the undercut if he can. Is this it? Is this it? Yes, it is. He's up the curb. The road will come to him in the King, but he's on the outside line for the next corner. He's got to get the job done, and he does. He moves right across on Will Stevens. Very, very well-earned position there.
Yes, that was a lot of hard work for Christopher Hauser. It took a long, long time. Finally, when he saw his opportunity, basically that all started as they came into turn 1 and concluded on the exit of turn 1. Well thought out overtake by Christopher Hauser. Will Stevens fought valiantly to retain his 4th position, but the inevitable did happen.
Here you go again. Wide in, gets the car slowed, goes for the gap, up the curb, nails it.
And you see, he's harder on the throttle going up the inside than Will Stevens is able to do on the outside. He's having to wait, and then he's able to get back onto the throttle.
So Simon Gachet and Christopher Hauser up into 4th place. And look, the gap has opened up straight away.
Yeah, and you can see the back of Will Stevens already there, stepping on the line, coming through turn 7. So he's probably been having to deal with a car that really hasn't got the pace of the 25 that's just taken the lead. There is our race leader coming across the line at the end of lap 29.
So Mirko Bortolotti lapping in the 45s. There is Bulatov, who's 2 seconds up on Marciello. First to third is 6.5 seconds, 6.5 minutes, give or take now, still to go.
So Marciello on the Marciello, and I don't imagine he's going to get too much resistance from Denis Bulatov. They are sister teams, team cars. So Denis Bulatov, that 2-second advantage he has over this driver in the yellow 88 Mercedes. 6 minutes remaining.
And a yellow flag will be out somewhere because car 37 has stopped. That's the BMW up at turn 8. So that's out of the chicane, that short straight to the next left-hander. That's part that they're approaching, in fact, from here. This is turn 5. So number 37 BMW out of the race. There is the hard-charging Marciello, and he's taken 3/10 out of Bulatov in the first sector. Hats off to Denis Bulatov. This has been a good drive, hasn't it?
I think it's done. I mean, there's been a number of outstanding drives, and Denis Bulatov is one of those. There's some in the first part of this race when drivers did an exceptional job in tricky conditions. There you can see the gaps between 27, 28, 29. Big lump taken out in lap 28, fractures taken out in 29, and of course the closer that Raffaele Marciello gets to Denis Bulatov, the same kind of scenario that we were watching with Christopher Hauser and Will Stevens will begin to apply to these two chasing Mercedes, unless Denis Bulatov steps aside to let the 88 go through and have one last poke at trying to get up and take the lead away from Mirko Bortolotti, which is a mighty big ask as far as I'm concerned.
Around in the same stable, aren't they? And that's an Acura ASP car that could do with points just to bring it into the mix of the championship. Marciello's car over the line, it's down to 1.3 seconds, second to third now. 5.5 splits the top 3. It's basically the best part of a second a lap that Marciello is lapping quicker than Bortolotti, but the pace is going to be affected when he gets stuck behind 87, unless he can catch and pass very swiftly.
I just wonder, will there be any assistance from the pit lane to advise Denis Bulatov that the 88 is the quicker? I remember back in a Grand Prix when Fernando Alonso was given, or not Alonso, it was Ruben Barrichello was given a message, I think, to... Was it Felipe Massa?
Felipe Massa.
Yeah. That Alonso was lapping quicker than you.
He's quicker than you, do you understand?
You get the message.
But in this context, different drivers bring different budgets, don't they? So it's not quite as straightforward as driving out of the same team. You're run by the same team, but you're paying to race in many cases. Your AM is certainly paying to race. So is it as straightforward? There might be some team orders, but it's very hard to tell somebody that's a pay driver to move over. So we'll see. It could be that Marciello has to do this on pure pace.
It also depends in part, the respective positions in the championships for the 88 car vis-a-vis the 87 car. And if it's possible for the 88 car to achieve more in the championship, then I would assume that at some point during a driver briefing or when these agreements are all agreed that there would be caveats where, look at Gottfried Grasser, he's not quite yet celebrating, but
it's close.
It's close. He's got 3 minutes and 30 seconds of this race remaining, in the gap between first and second is 4.2 seconds. First to third, 5.5 seconds. Good reason for Gottfried Grasser to look almost relieved. And also, it will be their first victory for the 63 car, I believe. Is it first victory of the year? Huh?
Since Older. Did they not win the first race?
Maybe they did. Maybe I've forgotten them. It's called Alzheimer Light.
It's been a long while coming, hasn't it, between wins? I'll double check that in a second. But there is Gottfried Grasser. And really, they've dominated this race because it was such a good start and they've never looked back.
Well, great job by Christian Engelhardt to take that lead. I mean, an amazing start from the third row of the grid, just pass everybody down, almost taking the paint off the Lamborghini down the pit wall to get the lead and do it, you know, on the wettest part of that racetrack on a set of slick tyres. There is the second place, Dennis Bulletov charging. The third place, even more of a charge on board once again with Raffaele Marcello through turn 5. Mercedes, such a nice balanced car. I mean, it really does work with the driver. Other cars have got equal lap time potential, but it's probably a little bit more of a difficult task just to get that performance out of the car.
So Bortolotti and Engelhardt, they did win at the start of the season at Zolder. They look as though they're going to win here because although the gap has been coming down, they've got enough in hand. And Raffaele Marciello, once again, mightily impressive the way that he has thrown everything at this, but he's still not quite caught up to Bulletov. Now, are we going to get 2 more laps or 1 more lap out of this? A flying lap is a 1:45. It's going to be the last lap, isn't it, this time? The race leader is about to emerge from turn 14 up towards the line.
Oh, he spun, Bulletov has spun!
Out of second place goes the Mercedes. Nico Jamin suddenly gets hit by a hammer blow. That second place disappears. That answers your team orders question. There certainly was none. It's down to a mistake.
I mean, simply, you know, well, I don't know what to say. I mean, it was so unexpected. Bulletov had been doing such a good job. Maybe just a little bit wide and caught some of the detritus on the outside of the corner, and that just caused the car to spin. It went so quickly, probably no chance whatsoever of doing much about it. And what a gift it was for Raffaele Marciello, who's still 4.5 seconds on the final lap. He ain't going to find that time other than something unforeseen, unspoken is going to happen to the 63 Lamborghini, and that would be an act of God.
Well, there is the recovering Dennis Bulletov. He's still third. He's lost 1 place, but Mercedes flags fly because it is Marciello chasing the Lamborghini. There is Mirko Bortolotti. He leads the way. We are on the last lap of the race. 4.5 seconds the margin. He's safe, and here is how Marciello saw that spin.
Just turns in, and then hard to tell what it maybe the car had looked reasonably balanced, entering in the corner and just slightly tail up, and then a rotation and off she went. Nicola Jamin, absolutely unbelieving of what he's seen. Okay, you've lost 1 position. You may well have lost that position, Nicola, had it been a battle to the end between the 88 and the 87 Mercedes. But there is our race leader.
So Gottfried Grasser starts to breathe a little bit more easily now because the car is nearly home. This is turn 12. Christian Engelhardt made a demon start. We did wonder at the time whether it was really good or whether it's a little bit of an anticipatory start. Well, it was never investigated as far as the officials were concerned. It was an absolutely dead set great start. It was a brilliant first lap, a great opening stint by Engelhardt, and a very impressive second stint by Mirko Bortolotti. Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt win at the Hungaroring in race 1 of the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. That has dominated the race. It wins by 4.7 seconds from Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows. Nicola Jamin and Dennis Bulletov take third. Some very impressive drives on display up and down the pit lane here. But for the GLT Grasser Racing team, it is a win and an excellent job done by Engelhardt and Bortolotti. What about this? Simon Gachet and Christopher Haase, 4th. 5th should be Will Stevens, but look at how much time he's lost. Having lost the place to Haase, he comes through behind him with the margin being 2 seconds, goes through, and then for 6th it's Albert Costa. Sorry, Will Stevens, I should say, 5.9 seconds back, 2 ahead of Albert Costa. 7th, Jack Manchester. 8th is Alexander Kornev. For 9th place, number 6, Lucas Stoltz, Mercedes, and the top 10 should be rounded out by Kelvin van der Linde's Attempto Audi. Well, in the conditions, certainly to begin with, we had some great racing. The tyre choice of Andrew Watson and the BMW squad, the 3Y Technology crew, that certainly affected the early few laps. In the end, that car a retirement, but significantly for the championship, Stuart Leonard a retirement, and the number 1 Audi of Alex Riberas and Christopher Mees a retirement as well. So there, up towards the line comes Ricardo Feller in the car that he shares with Adrian Delina. Behind him is Tristan Vautier to win Pro-Am, Tristan Vautier and Kenny Harble, so a great job done by them. There is the 2nd place Pro-Am car. Carlo Van Dam brings Piti Bieronbachti's Singer Beer Ferrari over the line, and then for 3rd, Marcus Winkelhock and Neil Stevenart's Audi. Well, as ever, John, Some excellent racing. Yes, the Lamborghini rather dominated, but that doesn't really tell you the whole story, does it?
No, the story was really about the rain that had fallen prior to this race getting underway and the track conditions everybody had to deal with. But it was the 63 Lamborghini that really shaded everybody into turn one. Great, I mean, entrepreneurial, I might say, start by Christian Engelhardt. Took the lead, and that car never lost the lead from the minute the lights went out to the flag fell. And a great job by the Grasso Racing team in turning around. The driver changed the wheels, getting it back out in the lead. What was the quickest car in the race? Well, the quickest car didn't win the race. The quickest car was Raffaele Marciello, the 88 Mercedes-Benz. That's the rub of the green, in particular when you've got unpredictable conditions, and it's all the better for it.
Although the flags fluttered from the marshals, let's have a look at the results then of race one here in Budapest at the Hungaroring. A win for the Lamborghini in the hands of Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt, ahead of Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello, and then Nicolas Jamin and Denis Bulletov coming home third. Off the podium, Simon Gachet and Christopher Hauser fourth, but they are ahead of Will Stevens and Dries Van Thor's Audi. Then the Lexus of Christian Klein and Albert Costa, from Nico Bastien and Jack Manchester. Atto Evan Cornet 8th, Hauptmann Stolz 9th, and Schotthorst and Van der Linde are 10th. Norbert Siedler 11th from the back with Marcus Pauteler ahead of Peter Schotthorst and Pierre Kappa in 12th. 13th after a drive-through, Loris Hezemans and Franck Pereira. They had a spin as well, don't forget. Adrian Delina and Ricardo Feller 14th from Kenny Harbour and Tristan Vautier, the Pro-Am winners from another of the penalised cars, Perez Compact and Calderelli's Lamborghini. That in turn ahead of Piti Biron-Bakti and Carlo Van Dam. They are second in Pro-Am ahead of Neil Stevenart and Marcus Winkelhock with the Malterex 19th and Andrew Watson's BMW a retirement. So also was the Fritz Leonard Audi and the Riveras and Mies Audi. So two significant cars in the championship not getting to the end, and a good haul of points in contrast for Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt. That has done them a lot of good in the championship, and a delighted Mirko Bortolotti is greeted by Christian Engelhardt. Thumbs up, smiles all round. Winners here in Hungary.
And you know the good news? They start on the second row of the grid for tomorrow's second sprint race. They'll be happy people tonight. Might even be happier when it comes to the end of that 1 hour race on Sunday.
And the forecast for tomorrow is dry all day, so that perhaps takes some of the sting out of the imponderables. There is Giorgio Sauna in the white shirt, the head of Lamborghini Squadron Corsa, the motorsport arm of Lamborghini, former racer himself, and somebody that's put a lot of effort into the Super Trofeo 1-Mate Championship, but also to support this GT3 programme, and it's being rewarded.
But the fly in the ointment for the Lamborghini, the 63, the winner here this afternoon, is who's on pole position? It's the 88 Mercedes-Benz of Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello. So maybe there'll be a lot of exhaust fumes from the Mercedes getting into the Lamborghini cockpit into turn one on this 1 hour race on Sunday afternoon.
Well, an excellent drive by Christian Engelhardt in those greasy conditions to begin with. And another second place for Marciello and Meadows, and third, the best of the year for Denis Bulletov and Nicolas Jamin. Let's look at the highlights and another look at that amazing start by Engelhardt. Off the line, to the inside and to the wet, and he made it stick. He had the advantage going down towards turn one. And once ahead, never headed. Through into second place, early doors slithered the Audis, but then as they dropped back and tyres were critical on the opening couple of laps, so the order shuffled itself. And Andrew Watson on wet got himself into the mix. He was overtaken as the tyres went off by a number of them, and as Alex Riberas tried to go around the outside, he ran out of grip and lost it into the wall. Engelhardt pitted early to give way to Bortolotti. Seamless pit stop, the car blasting back into the race. Nico Jamin gave way to Denis Bulletov, and they hung on to second place as Raffaele Marciello carved his way into contention. But we lost the man that was second in the championship coming into this race, Stuart Leonard. We'd already lost, of course, the championship leaders, Riberas and Mies. Will Stevens versus Christopher Hauser was a great fight going on for fourth place, as those two squabbled long and hard. And then when Denis Bulletov had a spin, it was enough to give the race win to Bortolotti and Engelhardt, and second to Marciello and Meadows, to Nicolas Jamin's great disappointment. Well done, Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt. Race 2 tomorrow promises to be another thriller. For now, from the Hungaroring, from John Watson and David Addison, bye-bye.